A drone that scoops dog shit, a man literally caught in the act, and the first ever Florida Man Games. You know, 2024 might have been bookended by strange Wonka-adjacent stories, but they weren't the only pieces of weird, funny, and interesting news to make headlines. My name is Greg Ott, and here at the News Refresh, we cover this kind of stuff each and every day. And we just went back through hundreds of our videos from the past year to find our very favorite silly, strange, and bizarre news stories that we've brought you over the past 366 days. And yeah, that's correct. 2024 was a leap year. Wow. Anyway, these are our top 16 weird news stories of 2024. And before we dive in, don't forget to give us a like and a hot subscribe. Thanks. And with that, we start at number 16 with a game of chance and skill from Down Under in February. You're looking at body camera footage out of Australia, where Queensland police were recently called to a shopping center. As the officer walks up, yep, amidst all the Hello Kitties in the tap play wind machine, that is a 3-year-old boy. The officer throws a wave, and the boy doesn't seem terribly concerned as he presses himself up against the glass. After all, the kid climbed his way inside of the machine through the prize chute and couldn't find his way back out. So what happens next? Did the cops sink a bunch of change in there and pluck him out by the skin with those sharp metal claws? Not quite.
Over to the corner over there.
Dad guides the boy over to the corner of the machine as police prepare to shatter the glass.
And cover his eyes. No, Ethan, cover your eyes. Hide.
With the break of the exterior, our dad here is awarded the most valuable prize from inside the box, his loving child. And after family and onlookers erupt in cheers, an officer offers up a bit of a bounty.
You want a prize. Which one do you want?
Now, just because this happened in Australia, that doesn't mean this is the kind of thing that, like spreading Vegemite on anything, only happens down under. There are actually plenty of recent examples of kids being trapped in claw machines here in the States. And just like in Australia, we've got to rely on trained public servants to help get these kids out. And again, police are more likely to probably just break the machine open instead of actually engaging in these so-called games of skill and chance, because, as highlighted in this excellent and highly detailed Vox report, these games are totally rigged. Everything from the strength of the claw's grip to the amount of profit generated by a machine that limits the number of prizes that get paid out. Yeah, so just in case you ever come across a kid that you desperately want to win and take home, you'll probably have better luck going the adoption route. Next, at number 15, McLove was in the McAir back in August. This is a couple that goes by Joseph and Abby.
We both started working at McDonald's, and our coworkers instantly thought that Abby and I would be a good match.
After McMeeting 6 years ago, coworkers like these things set the two of them up by arranging a phony team bonding event at the movies.
They kind of booby-trapped us to set us up on sort of a blind date.
Well, it worked, and as you can tell by this anthropomorphized fry and drink, they're about to become Mr. and Mrs. Donalds.
It's crazy to think that in just a month we're gonna get married.
Not only will the colleagues who set these two up be in attendance, but the after party will be stocked with McDonald's cheeseburgers and apple pies. Hopefully this guy won't try to crash the thing, but the owner of this Roseville, California McDonald's will be there. And he's also the type of guy to sing, ba-da-ba-ba-ba, I'm loving you.
I met my wife at McDonald's, so you know, love's always in the air.
They're registered at the Knot in case you want to get them a gift, but if you want to keep the theme going, you could always pick up one of these new limited edition adult Happy Meals that come with cups featuring Beanie Babies, Shrek, or that deadly island grimace. Huh, I wonder if this guy's ordained. Coming in at 14 from September was a question. You want to buy a school?
My husband told me that we were going to buy a school. I went, oh my God. It's like, what do you mean?
That woman's name is Orestella, and her husband meant exactly what he said. When back in 2016, they purchased Cascade Elementary School in Cascade, Wisconsin.
It's way more homey than you realize, just because it kind of reminds you of your old days when you went to school.
Yeah, it's easy to be reminded of school when, your place is outfitted with stacks of kiddie chairs, urinals, drinking fountains, display cases, and even a principal's office. Because, it was a school that hasn't seen any students since 2010, when area schools were consolidated. This elementary school was originally purchased as a workspace for Richard's electronics business. But after selling that business and their home, well, the couple decided to move in, where they've been making the most of their 13 bathrooms and 6 classrooms. 5 of which have been turned into bedrooms that also appear to store workout equipment too. You have a gym, right?
Probably the biggest adjustment is the distance from one place to the other, and then having to say, honey, where are you? So that we carry our phones with us, like, where are you,
Makes sense, given it's a 17,000 square foot building on 18 acres, which is now up for sale, if you want it, for a measly $850 grand. That price, though, does include a bunch of old tables and chairs. And this place could make an ideal spot for homeschooling or just school homing.
A bigger family, a growing family, an in-law situation, this is the place for you.
Number 13 wasn't so lucky for this guy back in February. You're hearing the sound of a burglar alarm going off in Colorado at the end of February. In this body cam footage, we then see an officer with a long rifle enter the frame, prepared to open the door to a room which is believed to contain a suspect. Viewer discretion is advised over what you're about to see.
Ready? Michael, please, show me your hands.
Yep, a robbery suspect is positioned on the john, unloading some hot goods, so to speak.
Hands up. Hands up.
What's shocking here is after our alleged burglar acknowledges he's been caught in another act, he's not quite given the opportunity to wrap things up.
Stand up. Stand up. Walk this way.
Yeah, this video, released by this PD, had to block out his parts and accessories there as he gets up from the convenience, throws his hands in the air, and walks towards the cops.
Walk towards me. Keep your hands up. Stop there. Stop there. Stop right there.
Now there's a lot going on here. Even though on the Lakewood Police Department's Facebook page they write that this suspect was taken to jail after pulling his pants up, in this footage we don't see our man flush, wipe, or wash those hands in the air. The video cuts off as he slowly walks his way towards the cops with his pants around his ankles. The cops, of course, said this burglar caught in poopy situation was apprehended after a drone spotted him after a verified burglary alarm went off. Hopefully he triggered a fan too. On this police department's Facebook page, Ray LaFrance wrote, "Glad he wasn't a runner." Ash Tuesday Porter said, "Oh." And Michael Carrington said, "Pretty pathetic you would put that on social media to get a chuckle." But for those of us who happen to be interested in a pathetic chuckle, Jen Scott said, "Seems like an illegal dumping charge would be more appropriate." Robert D. Bright II said, "That's a real shituation." And Brendan Flynn said, "Where will you be when diarrhea hits?" This PD says that our number 2 suspect here is being held on a second-degree burglary charge. And there was overall great teamwork by their patrol and drone teams. So the next time you're thinking about pulling off some sort of dastardly burglary caper, be forewarned if you're caught, you might not have time to reach for the toilet paper. At number 12 from August, we present a moment of liberation for our friends in Denmark. It's party time in Denmark. Get on the boat, hoist the flag, and let the spicy noodles flow.
Freedom for the spicy! Freedom for the spicy!
This is video from a ferry in Copenhagen Harbor, where on Thursday, locals were jubilant and a chicken casually and confidently cha-cha'd its cloaca in honor of this pirate's bounty. Bulldog ramen noodles. These things are a hot commodity out of South Korea, and these partygoers are dancing, eating, and getting neck tattoos for a pretty good reason. They're allowed to eat them again. As we told you about back in June here on your Daily News Refresh, please subscribe, 3 variations of the Samyang brand hot noodles, which are sold worldwide and were made popular by the Fire Noodles Challenge on social media, were essentially dubbed too hot for Danes to handle, with the food authorities in Denmark issuing a recall on these 3 products due to a possible risk of acute poisoning because of their levels of capsaicin. Capsaicin is the naturally occurring chemical found in chili peppers that lends foods a spicy sensation and lends pepper spray its signature get the shit out of my eyes sensation.
I think it's ridiculous and there's no reasonable justification.
That's the owner of a grocery store in Denmark back in June, who wasn't pleased to be forced to take these products off the shelf.
The current justification is that the product contains too much capsaicin, which is a natural substance in chili peppers. In other words, the product is being recalled because it's spicy. And I've received a report from the Danish Food Administration, and in the report it says that this product is just as spicy as fresh jalapenos and Tabasco. If ramen is being recalled, then why is Tabasco and fresh jalapenos not being recalled? And there are products that are being sold right now that are even more spicy, like chili powder. So it's an unreasonable justification. And the Danish Food Administration hasn't given any guidelines or set any standards on how spicy food can be.
I think it's a little bit strange because most people, they already know it's spicy when they buy it.
That's a shop assistant at that same grocery store who, along with this customer, points out one flaw with this whole buyer beware scare.
I don't think there's a reason for it to be banned because you decide on your own if the spiciness, what you put in it, and it's on your own if how spicy you make it.
Well, perhaps to satiate palates dulled by a steady stream of butter cookies, and maybe even reclaim the top spot on the world's happiest index, the Danish Veterinary and Food Administration carried out a risk assessment in July and concluded that 2 of those 3 banned products are not in fact harmful to health, and reversed their ban. Their translated website does note they still consider the Samyang Bulldog 3X Spicy Hot Chicken Ramen to be harmful to health, but that didn't stop the noodle makers to storm the seas in victory in its so-called Bulldog Spicy Fairy. Wrapped wrapped in banners and covered in flags reading "We missed you," in honor of Vikings who can handle the spice. A free buffet welcomed influencers and people who want to raffle to enjoy flavor-paired beverages and partake in some dangerous noodle play. This Danish Food and Drug Administration still recommends that you be careful when eating very strong chili products. And the noodle company says they're grateful for the collaboration and guidance they got from these authorities. If you thought national politics was messed up in 2024, this story number 11 from July reminds us it's not much better at the local level either. There's a tote bag of mine, and yeah, I don't have any oatmeal or ramen in there. It's just a normal tote bag that's now soaking wet. So yeah, fair question, but I'm just some idiot with a YouTube channel and a soaky sack. I'm not a state legislator in Vermont. Take a look at this video from April out of Vermont State House. Wow, a coat rack. Just wait. Yeah, this woman here approaches a bag on a hook and dumps a cup of water into this bag. And no, she's not trying to help out a desperate cactus or something. That's not even her bag.
There were very few occasions when it wasn't wet at lunchtime, and then by the end of the day, it was wet.
That's the voice of Jim Carroll, a Democratic representative in the Vermont State House, who for months was perplexed as to who the hell was watering his damn bag. And this video here is from a spy camera that he set up, where just days after that last incident in April, you can see Jim go up to his bag here, walk away, and seconds later, that same lady returns to the bag with another cup and dumps more water into the thing. Now, it turns out that woman pouring the water isn't some disgruntled constituent that's upset fish isn't stopping in Burlington on this year's summer tour. No, that woman is Republican State Representative Mary Morrissey, whose committee room is just across the hall from Jim. So wait, why exactly would this Republican State Representative be pouring water into the bag of her Democratic colleague? I mean, sure, polarization in our two-party dominated political system has been getting worse in recent years, and is certainly manifesting itself in wet and wild ways. As we told you recently here on your daily news refresh, please subscribe, supporters of Donald Trump have recently taken to wearing adult undergarments at political rallies and sporting the phrase "real men wear diapers" as an apparent means of defending the felonious former president over claims that he wears and soils adult diapers. But in the case of this water bag here, it appears to have started happening following Jim's arrest on DUI charges back in February, which he's pleaded not guilty on and is due back in court in July. After he returned from treatment in March, that's when he says these waterfalls started happening nearly every day. And after recently meeting with legislative leaders and confronting Mary with the evidence that she's the one behind the leaky tote, she apologized and also claimed to be confused over this whole thing herself.
Quite honestly, I don't know why I did it. I was not meaning to hurt Jim. It was something certainly very out of character for me, and I am ashamed of myself.
Mary has since been removed from a key committee, and the Speaker of the Vermont House has said that the integrity and decorum of our legislative proceedings and of legislators are of paramount importance, and any actions or behaviors that compromise these values will be thoroughly investigated and addressed.
I wanted to keep this as quiet as possible, but I wanted also to make it clear to her that this was serious and that there should be consequences for what she did.
After reports of the soaky sack emerged from a local Vermont news outlet, Jim says he reluctantly released these videos in the interest of transparency. And on Wednesday, Mary expressed regret to everyone from the floor of the House, captured in this wonderful angle of just the backs of their heads.
I hope Jim, my legislative colleagues, all of our State House staff and those who work in this building and the citizens of Vermont can forgive me.
You know, after 5 months of that, and it was torment. There's no doubt about it, with me anyway. There's going to be some work to be done between the two of us.
An ethics panel is investigating everything that went down, and lawmakers are facilitating a space for these two to repair their relations. If anything, their water cooler talk now should be pretty interesting. Okay, 5 stories down, 10 to go. Before we keep going, if you haven't already, give us a like and a hot subscribe to get more stuff like this in your feed, okay? Great. And with that, at number 10 from April, a desperate message of love.
I enjoy doing it. It's my hobby. Expensive one, but it's my hobby.
So this lady is called Linda Howard, and you can see her expensive hobby right behind her. She puts up billboards in California asking people to date her and her friends. Here's a pair she put up in December, seeking Christian gentlemen who must like to dance under the stars, have worn out jeans, and enjoy target practice not on reindeer, to connect via a Gmail account or a post office box in the northern part of the state. You know, some places actually charge $100 to crank out an online dating profile on your behalf. But our lady in California here claims this out-of-home advertising strategy has actually landed her a few dates. Dates that haven't worked out.
They have to laugh and they have to have a sense of humor, and unfortunately, it wasn't there.
Well, she's at it again with a new billboard, laying out new requirements for a 50 to 80-year-old Christian man who's born to fly, must not be boring, and possesses a willingness to learn to weld. Not that a lack of a love connection from someone who chose you in the same manner they'd select an attorney or a rest stop is a total loss. She says in some instances in which a date hasn't worked out, she's ended up setting up that dud with another one of her friends.
There's a lot of single people at our age that it's hard to find somebody that's compatible, you know? So I'm just trying. Hopefully I will, and I can hook up some people for the summer to go out and enjoy life. Because life is too short and we all ought to have fun and meet new people in life.
This time, at least design-wise, she's trying her luck with a chicken, a fortune teller, and an illustration of her collecting the cans she claims is paying for this ad.
I thought it was a cute picture, but really I think God's in control of our lives. We just know that He has a plan for all of us. And I've been single for 34 years, so do you think He'd be a little faster on this one? I just want a good friend to go and laugh with and send him home when I get bored with him, and I get bored easily.
Well, given that, she's also seeking your best and worst dating stories, as she's trying to make more connections that could also score her a date.
Oh yeah, I would love to hear it. Yeah, and then we can share it with other people. And maybe we can someday have a group where we can all go to Billy Park and have a picnic and get to know each other.
This billboard's only up through April, but Linda plans to put up more in the future. And her tale has actually inspired us to put up our own call for connections. Please subscribe. We put out new, weird, and interesting news stories each and every day. Thank you. Number 9 from March is a close call. Yikes.
I mean, obviously it wasn't my time, but yeah, it's probably the closest I've ever experienced it.
That guy's name is Shane, and on Thursday in Oregon, security cameras catch him walk into the Quick Trip neighborhood market. And as the door shuts behind him, look at that. A 4-foot concrete saw blade flies across the parking lot and slams straight into the side of the building.
So I was walking into the store here, I put my handle on the door, and I heard a loud bang and yelling over here at the corner. Just as a cloud of smoke pops up, and I see a guy fall into the ditch, and a 4-foot blade hurling at me as I'm walking through the doorway.
Local news talked to a contractor who saw this go down, who said operator error and a loose bolt at a construction site is what might have turned this guy's day into a scene straight out of Mega Man 2.
Oh my God, I tears all night. Like, yeah, it was petrifying. I was shaking in the store. It took me a little bit before I could talk.
The owner and his mom were behind the counter of the place when they heard the blade hit the convenience store.
All I heard was like a metal rolling down from the street, and I looked at the camera, it was just wind. And all of a sudden we heard a loud bang, like it shook literally the whole store.
Look at this thing. Our blade here was embedded 2 feet into the side of the building, and it took 3 guys to get it out. The contractor, who may be responsible for this freak accident that could have cut this guy in half, has reportedly been removed from work while the whole thing is being reviewed by the utility company that was doing construction. And after this video first went viral, Shane says his kids rushed home to see him.
They all came to my house and hugged me, and we had lots of cries, and I'm thankful to be here, really. And I was thinking maybe it's my time, but I don't think I would have survived being touched by that thing.
Our Blade Runner here told local news that he's still planning to shop at this liquor store. And after this all happened, quote, "I need a beer." It's worth pointing out that also on Thursday, Deadline reported that the cast of the 6th installment of the Final Destination franchise has just been set. And just in case the movie's writers are still looking for some story ideas, well, here you go. Our number 8 story from March is about a bunch of criminal brickheads. Is this the face of a criminal? How about this? What about this? I don't even know if I can trust this little guy. After all, there sure are a lot of pirate-themed Lego sets, and I bet plenty of those guys operate outside the normal bounds of Lego law. But Legoland hasn't become some sort of crime-ridden hellhole. It turns out these are some actual real-world photos that have been altered to disguise a suspect's appearance. The minifigures depicted in these photos are suspected of non-violent crimes. And this lieutenant with the Murrieta, California Police Department notes that these playful alterations are meant to catch your eye.
A little fun, get some attention, game the social media algorithms, generate some attraction, likes, follows, stuff like that.
As the PD asked on Facebook a couple of days ago in this very plastic lineup, why the covered faces? Well, they've explained on Instagram that this is the result of AB 1475, a bill passed in California back in 2021 that prohibits a police department or sheriff's office from sharing on social media booking photos of an individual arrested on suspicion of committing a non-violent crime, unless special circumstances exist. And just the other day, the PD explained that in order to share what's happening in Murrieta, they choose to cover the faces of suspects to protect their identity while aligning with a new update to this law. As of the start of this year, mugshots now have to be taken down off of social media after 14 days. But as noted by a local news station, many of these photos with the Lego heads are still okay because they're not the types of classic mugshots or booking photos that we all know and love. These are instead pics snapped by cops at a police station or while they're apprehending a suspect.
I definitely believe strongly in the value of transparency with our community and letting them know what their police department is doing out there. At the same time, making sure we're remaining compliant with state law and respecting the suspects' rights as well. So again, that's that fine line of maintaining that balance.
It turns out our PD here has actually been redacting faces on social media for several years. Here's the persevering face emoji caught with drugs and a stolen car back in 2022. Here's the disembodied head of Barbie apprehended for trespassing, drug possession, and stolen property last year. And look, even Fair Shrek and Donkey themselves were busted for shoplifting back in November. But Lego has remained the redaction of choice for the Murrieta PD. Here's a Lego driver's license, a Lego DUI hit-and-run suspect, a happy Lego officer with a sad Lego alleged car thief, and even a Lego mother and Lego daughter believed to be shoplifters. Now, the public response to these Lego faces has actually been kind of mixed on social media. In November, N2 Optics wrote, "I like it, they're all blockheads." Edgar Villa 3 said, "Not a fan of the Lego faces to be honest, I find it unprofessional." And _Danny_Espinosa 84 replied to this post without saying anything. But one minifigure looms large over this whole operation: the Lego people themselves. With local news reporting that the Lego Group has asked this police department to stop using its trademarked images on social media. The PD says that going forward, it plans to come up with a new option to block out faces. Maybe they could try this one because it's public domain now. Story number 7 from July is kind of a sign of the times.
Don't be like Shaw's Plumbing. Just putting signs up because we're going to rip them down.
This guy tearing signs off a utility pole is the Shaw of Shaw's Plumbing, William Shaw to be exact. And he's not exactly removing advertisements for garage sales, photo booth rentals, and free Obamacare to clean up the wooden posts of Detroit once and for all out of the goodness of his heart. Nope, it's court-ordered community service for having put up hundreds of his own signs illegally.
They're not going to back down. They will find you. They will come after you and your company, and they will make you pay for it. And that's what I'm here doing right now. I'm going to be removing these signs behind me and helping the city control their blight.
He doesn't sound terribly pleased there, but neither was the city of Detroit, who said last year that Shaw's Plumbing was one of the worst offenders of violating city sign ordinances by hanging all these things up without proper authorization. Not only did the city say that they had to take down more than 600 of his signs, and that they were often installed at very tall heights, they say that instead of using a basic staple gun, Shaw used a nail gun with threaded nails and wide plastic collars that made his signs extremely difficult to remove. Now, you might appreciate a local service provider equipped with specialized tooling that offers up that kind of attention to detail, but you see, Detroit has this thing called the Blight to Beauty program, which for years has empowered the city to gussy things up in a place that's better known for things looking like this than like this. Now, while it's still up for debate whether Detroit's so-called Hollywood-style sign that we told you about a little while back here in your daily news refresh, please subscribe, is a solution or a contribution to this blight, Detroit has nevertheless been making progress in cleaning the gunk out of the Motor City. Over the past decade, around 25,000 vacant or abandoned structures have been demolished, and the city's cleared out around 90,000 tons of trash from Detroit's alleys over the past 4 years.
Hello, my name is Katrina Crawley. They affectionately call me the Blight Czarina.
Yeah, the Blight Czarina there is the assistant director of the city's Blight and Remediation Division. Back in 2022, the city's Blight to Beauty team underwent a massive nuisance sign removal process. And even though they had some success, Shaw's Plumbing remained a Shaw's problem.
For a while, we saw a decline in that behavior, which is what we want. But there are probably 5 offenders who just wouldn't stop.
It's just an added nuisance to the community, and we don't want it.
That's the president of a local community association who told the Associated Press she also pressed the city to do something about the number of Shaw's Plumbing signs.
I think there are effective ways to advertise your companies. I want them to be successful. but they don't have to do it on our poles, in our lawns, on our berms that we didn't ask for.
Now sure, you might think these random signs at random intersections are just there to harmlessly convince you to sell your home because you owe property taxes, or simply urge you to take advantage of any number of bland services. But the city of Detroit nonetheless thinks that remediating blight by removing improperly authorized signs improves the quality of life for its residents. So last year, Detroit's law department authorized charges on 59 counts against Shaw for violating the sign ordinance, with the possibility of 3 months in jail and nearly 30 grand in fines. He says he ultimately ended up having to pay thousands of dollars in fines, and a judge sentenced him to 40 hours of community service, which includes time spent taking down other illegal signs with this blight remediation division. And while all of this isn't quite as action-packed as taking down blight like they do in Breath of the Wild, that community association president nevertheless seems pleased with the end result. And hey, at least they didn't have to roll out RoboCop.
What I'm hoping is it's sending a strong message to the city of Detroit and the citizens of Detroit. We do not need any more visual pollution and blight in our community. Flat out, period. Don't want it, don't need it, go take it to your neighborhood.
If you thought our politics kind of melted down at the national level this year, story number 6 from June kind of confirms you're right.
I mean, who thought putting a wax statue outdoors in the middle of summer was a good idea?
That guy lives in Alexandria, Virginia, and he's talking about this likeness of Abraham Lincoln that lives inside of 3,000 pounds of wax. It's a replica of the Lincoln Memorial that since February has been sitting pretty outside of Garrison Elementary School in Washington, D.C., about 8 minutes away from Ford's Theater, the site of a previous grievous injury involving Mr. Lincoln's head. For the uninitiated, February is cold, and ever since summer kicked off last week and a heat wave affecting the Midwest to the East Coast pushed temperatures in D.C. to 100 degrees, it's created a circumstance for the 6-foot-tall wax structure that's not so hot, or very hot. You know what I mean. Now it turns out this waxy emancipator is actually intended to melt. The work is called 40 Acres Camp Barker by artist Sandy Williams IV. And the idea is that you're supposed to light one of the wicks contained within Mr. Lincoln to create a moment to reflect on the history of Washington, D.C. and all of the people who lived at Camp Barker. Garrison Elementary School happens to be on the site of the former Camp Barker, which was a federally funded contraband camp, a place that during the Civil War, notes the nonprofit that commissioned this work, provided support and shelter to escaped slaves who sought refuge in the Union, offering up everything from education to medical care to employment opportunities. And Mr. Lincoln had a connection to Camp Barker, as our artist revealed in an interview with a child.
Why is Abraham Lincoln important to Camp Barker?
Abraham Lincoln used to ride past Camp Barker. He visited Camp Barker a few times, but he also was in charge of establishing Camp Barker. I think it's important to know that Camp Barker was there and that it was the largest, freedmen community in DC around the Civil War. And a lot of important neighborhoods and communities and people came out of that space.
While the statue has undoubtedly opened up an opportunity for learning, Lincoln's liquefaction over the past several days has softened that historical substance into something that's more well suited for molding memes. In spite of the wax's 140-degree melting point, our 16th president appears to have been no match for the hot, hot sun, and first wound up in a position where he appeared to have thrown his head all the way back into a highly suggestive position, making room for one of the summer's hottest meme mashups, like when you gotta free the slaves but Mary Todd is given a huck tour. If you're not familiar with the huck tour, go ask your mom.
You gotta give him that huck tour and spit on that thing.
They removed it, yes. Well, you got to do something like that to save it, then not just let it go into ruin and stuff like that. So, but I think it's a neat art installation, and I understand it's actually an actual candle, too.
The nonprofit that commissioned this art says this decapitation of the guy who was on the 5 was to prevent it from falling and breaking, and they're determining the next stage of this installation. And in spite of Abe's viral meltdown, the transformative nature of this work seems pretty on brand for an artist who described himself like this.
I make art that is temporary and is touchable and is active, which can sometimes confuse people or be frustrating or it's different.
For the time being, Honest Abe is in repair. And for those who aren't lucky enough to have an artist standing ready to reform your melted body under the punishing heat of our planet, a recent study out of Science Advances found that since 1979, climate change has been leading to longer-lived, longer-traveling, and slower-moving contiguous heat waves that happen 67% more often and are hotter than they were 40 years ago. And our friend here from Virginia has a wee bit of advice for those hoping that cooler heads will ultimately prevail.
Like I said, I've lived in the city for 53 years. I've lived the first 10 years here with no air conditioning, if you can believe that. Because I grew up in New Jersey, we didn't have air conditioning, so to me that was normal. It's Washington, D.C., it's summertime, do the math, it's going to be hot. If you don't like it, move to Vermont.
If you've made it this far, these are our top 5 weird news stories of the year. Like, subscribe, whatever. We now take you to a foot race in Paris in March. This is video from Sunday in Paris, and they're off. Hundreds upon hundreds of waiters dressed in traditional waiter garb making their way across a 2-kilometer loop through the Mural neighborhood, beginning and ending at City Hall. The goal is the dream of anyone who's ever ordered room service: to see who can deliver a tray carrying a full glass of water, an empty cup of coffee, and a croissant to the finish line the fastest. And yeah, the rules here are pretty simple. No spilling, which should at least be easy for the coffee given the cup is empty, and no running, hence the streets full of speed walking staff members. Now, in case you were wondering why your order was taking so long, yes. As noted by Paris's official tourist bureau, these are real experienced and apprentice waiters and waitresses, taking part in 2 separate events split out for professionals and trainees respectively. And as noted by Paris's mayor here, who's speaking French as is the fashion in France, she says that La Course des Cafés is a party race and a historical race, and that bistro is a way of life in Paris. Indeed, this traditional race dates all the way back to 1914, but it hadn't been run in 12 years due to budget constraints. Perhaps that pleased the likes of Susie Orman, who doesn't seem to like buying coffee. But ahead of the 2024 Summer Olympics in Paris, local authorities chose to revive this race to showcase this essential element of Parisian heritage. Now, there have been a few changes here. The original name of this race was La Course des Garçons de Café, aka the Coffee Boys race. But as noted by France 24, garçon meaning boy isn't really used these days. Plus, both men and women were invited to take part in this competitive breakfast jaunt. And while our shuffling staffers are indeed dressed in classic waiter attire, the New York Times highlights one key modern accommodation, namely allowing formal dress shoes to be swapped out for sneakers. Thank you, Chef. The Associated Press reports the winner of the men's race clocked in at a brisk 13 minutes and 30 seconds, and the women's champion came in at a cool 14:12. Their prizes included medals, tickets to the Olympic opening ceremony, and a night out at a Paris hotel. That's pretty amazing. Can I place my order now or what? At number 4 is a story of loss from May, perhaps involving our extraterrestrial friends. The UFO Welcome Center in Bowman, South Carolina was a lovely spot to greet galactic guests should they ever decide to pay a visit to our fine little planet. I mean, sure, they could always make their first stop on Earth a stroll through nature, a grocery store, or a concert venue in the Alps. But since 1994, this lovely little attraction has offered our extraterrestrial friends some good old-fashioned Southern hospitality. But I'm sadly using the past tense here, because as of last week, well,
fire started it. And now a fire took it out.
That's Jody Pendarvis, the proprietor of this odd little tourist trap / intergalactic rest stop, who woke up last Thursday to find the remains of the place in a smoldering fire. Now, it's not exactly clear what caused the UFO Welcome Center to burn down. Jody did tell local news maybe another UFO came by and set the fire, but reports of such occurrences can't be substantiated.
No, it can't be. Impossible. All I got is a little TV set in there. I don't think it started it.
The whole thing was pretty much just made of wood and metal, and the local fire chief notes there wasn't really much they could do.
Yeah, we got some calls around 7 about the fire, but when we got here, we arrived on scene, the UFO center was pretty much on the ground. And then we started attacking it and putting water on it, and then the mobile home, which is used for storage, caught on fire.
Yeah, in spite of all the signs that read UFO Welcome Center, Space People Only, Jody had a trailer on the property that he lived in that was also destroyed in the fire. And this whole thing was more than just a home or an alien visitor center. At least on TripAdvisor, it's ranked the #1 of 2 things to do in Bowman, beating out this, field. And for years, this place has been featured on everything from Atlas Obscura to RoadsideAmerica.com as a favorite offbeat tourist attraction, which, based on this ancient HTML design, has shockingly already been updated to let us know it's gone.
You come all the way here from Savannah or Greenville just to come see the UFO. One person said, well, actually, I came from Plymouth, England.
And I know some people could be sad because of going, and I know Jody's sad because, you know, he put a lot of time and effort in this thing.
It meant a lot to me. It's almost like my second life. Now that it burned up, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I think about rebuilding.
Fire crews are still investigating what caused the UFO Welcome Center to go up in flames. And in case you're worried that alien visitors are now going to have to settle for some boring greeting in a stuffed up city like DC or Geneva, don't worry. As we told you earlier this year on your news refresh, please subscribe, the Tourist Bureau of Lexington, Kentucky has been beaming a laser towards the TRAPPIST-1 solar system to try to get aliens to drink their bourbon and spend time in their bluegrass. Huh, sounds good to me. Taking the bronze is a very Florida set of games that went down back in February. A giant competition to steal catalytic converters, eat the most butt, and spar with pool noodles in a giant pool of mud? That's right, and what else would you expect from the inaugural Florida Man Games?
To watch stupidity occur on the grandest spectacular scale.
That's an attendee who made it out to the official Florida Man Games in St. Augustine, Florida over the weekend. Officially billed as the wildest competition sporting events on Earth, the Florida Man Games lean into the reputation of the proverbial Florida Man. You know, the beloved scoundrel who gets caught climbing up trees like Tarzan during a police chase, pretending he's a veterinarian to operate on a pregnant dog, or having 150 live bugs removed from his nose after not knowing they were there. Hence, what was said to be the most insane athletic showdown on Earth, where the events are as unexpected as the headlines that inspired them. Kicking things off with a sleeveless electric guitar solo of the Star-Spangled Banner, attendees shelled out at least $45 for the chance to experience some raw, uncut Florida.
That's Pasco County, Florida, home sweet home. Born and bred right there, Newport Richie, Gulf of Mexico.
The Associated Press says our man here drove nearly 200 miles to attend this thing. But then again, who among us wouldn't go the distance for love?
It's actually a birthday present for my wife. My friend group back home knows me as the Florida Man because I've always been the hunting, fishing type of dude, so we'll be good.
Among the agenda items for Florida's Floridaist men, the weaponized pool noodle challenge inside of the Florida Man Games Coliseum, aka massive above ground pool. There was also the evading arrest obstacle course, where competitors were chased by actual cops in hopes of making a trademark getaway. And, of course, the relay known as a catalytic converter, 2 bikes, and a handful of copper pipes. Race against time.
They gotta steal that, they gotta ride with these two, here's where it gets tricky. The evading arrest obstacle course looks like it's gonna be a great time. The bicycle relay with the stolen catalytic converter, that's a big problem in my area, is people stealing catalytic converters from under your truck. I actually have to park my truck right under my security camera because I caught a guy trying to do it one time. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, as mentioned before, many of these events were inspired by the real-life trials and tribulations, but let's face it, mostly trials, of Florida's finest.
To win. I've been in Florida my whole life. And they're calling these events. I'm calling this shit Tuesday afternoon. So I'm ready to bring home the gold.
By a fraction of a second, this guy won an eating contest to see who could first wolf down an entire plate of barbecue pork and sausages. That competition, of course, held the distinctive title of the Eat the Butt Challenge. Pork butt, okay? Again, this was just a fraction of the day-long activities. There was also a mullet contest, a Category 5 cash grab, chicken coop bingo.
We were born for this. Born for it.
It's estimated that thousands turned out for the chance to slam beers by hand or by head. And on Instagram, the Florida Man Games posted, "Florida, we did the damn thing. See you next year." People hoping to steal bikes, play in the mud, and chow down on butt may have to wait for another turn around the sun to get that chance again. Though when it comes to these types of spectacles, like pretending to steal copper pipes in order to live the life of a Florida man, this doesn't appear to just be a one-off event. For our barbecue butt boy here, it's just another day in the life in the Sunshine State.
Experience being in Florida. Last 3 years, all I did for income was scrapping. So, I mean, the end of one of our events is hitching a trailer. Do that 4 or 5 times a day. So in the end, I think experience will ultimately overcome and cause bring home a victory.
In second place, we present this beautiful piece of artistry from May.
I'm not a rule breaker, but I am like to make a political statement as necessary, and as well as a humorous statement and a creative statement.
That guy's name is Etienne Constable, and he's standing next to this fresh, photorealistic mural of a boat. And that boat painting, as you can see here, bears a striking resemblance to an actual boat and other features of his property that are obscured by this here fence. You see, this guy in Seaside, California has had his boat parked in his driveway for years. But according to the Washington Post, he got a letter from the city in July stating that the local municipal code requires boats and trailers to be screened on the side and fronted by a 6-foot fence. And rather than face a $100 fine, he did the next best thing. He built something of a spite fence. You see, this guy's neighbor is an artist who works under the name Hanif Wandir, and he's got a pretty comprehensive portfolio of illustrations, murals, designs, you know, art. In this YouTube video he posted May 8th, he captions that after Etienne got that letter about hiding the boat, he built the fence and presented Hanif with a sassy idea that required his artistic skills. A painting of a boat in a driveway next to a house on a fence, in front of a boat in a driveway next to a house. And yeah, that's exactly what he got. This whole thing made it into the malicious compliance subreddit, which highlights stories of people conforming to the letter but not the spirit of the request. In the replies, ToeJam78 called this some Larry David level. Known_skin 6672 wondered, didn't a coyote and a roadrunner do something similar with the painting of a tunnel? And Mo Green said, this was god level petty. And I love it. This story is reminiscent of a fun one we covered last year on a news refresh. Please subscribe. About an angry neighbor who put up all this disgusting artwork to face the backyard pool of an old lady in response to a tree trimming dispute. By the way, update, CBS says those pictures ended up getting removed. Our painting of a boat on a fence here, though, isn't really an act of revenge. Just some light malicious compliance. And as our boatman notes, he's happy with how this is all turning out.
I'm, all in favor of generating discussion and making people smile, and the reaction is extremely more than we ever expected, and we're both just tickled about it. It's pretty cool.
If that's not enough, the artist even claims other homeowners who received similar letters have reached out to him about painting other murals too. And hey, if you're into public murals like these, check out this old video of ours about a guy in Australia who paints utility poles in his spare time. And our top weird news story of 2024, number 1, probably should have been number 2. We're living in an age of technological triumph, with innovators across the globe crafting solutions intended to improve our everyday lives. And there's one guy out there at the moment addressing one of the shittiest situations people routinely grapple with. Quite literally.
It's like, okay, where do you take the poop? Aside from dropping it on your neighbor's house?
That's a software engineer in Minnesota named Caleb. And he's been building a drone dedicated to literally putting up with your dog's shit.
She's the original motivating factor.
Having been forced to clean up his dog's waste multiple times a day.
You're okay, Twinkie.
Our intrepid Minnesotan here has been spending his spare time prototyping this high-tech replacement for your hands warm embrace.
I felt like this is a huge problem. Why not attempt it with the poop copter?
Yes, the poop copter. The world's first aerial-bound self-guided dog poop removal system using a drone, 3D printed pickup mechanism, and machine learning. This flying feces fairy here has been engineered to hover the ground until it detects a brown parcel, a signal for the drone to then swoop in and literally take a shit. Caleb told local news that according to his research, nobody's ever developed a poop scooping drone before. We're worried on that one, Lockheed Martin. And he actually showed off the poop copter to the public back in September at Mini Demo 40, Minnesota's premier geek show and tell.
And this is the doo-doo drone. This is the poo pilot. This is the feces flinger 5,000.
While there's no shortage of things you can call this dirty work drone,
you can't get around there being poop in some way in the name.
There's still plenty of work to be done to perfect this skyward shit scoop. For one thing, Caleb's already gone through 31 iterations of this copter, and he still needs to make it do things like run automatically.
You can do it in the middle of the night, you can run whenever you want, decide and set a timer.
Caleb ultimately has hopes of going direct to consumer with this thing.
I think that'd be the most fun if people could have their own.
Though until that day, it seems he's able to take in a small amount of personal satisfaction by not having to use his extremities to extract excrement.
The biggest reward is actually picking up a poop. There's a little dopamine hit of feeling like you've made progress.
From dog shit drones to Lego mugshots to melting Abe to a kid stuck in a damn claw machine, this list doesn't even scratch the surface of all the weird shit that went down over the past year. My name is Greg Ott, and please check out the rest of our channel to see all the other weird stories we've covered over this past 12 months. And if you like this kind of stuff, again, subscribe to get more of it in your feed. Bye.